The modern autopsy of Princess Beatrice, the daughter who couldn't escape. When the last daughter of Queen Victoria died, so too did the silence of a dynasty. Princess Beatrice was the baby, the obedient one, the keeper of her mother's secrets, and the prisoner of her mother's grief. She lived in service, and she died of it. This is the modern autopsy of Princess Beatrice, the daughter who could never escape her mother's shadow. The child of mourning, Beatrice Mary Victoria Theodore, was born in 1857, the ninth and final child of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. By the time she arrived, the royal nursery was overflowing, and the Queen was exhausted. But Albert adored her. He called her baby. Victoria, even in her letters, referred to her youngest as my darling last little blessing. Then, when Beatrice was just 4, Albert died. The Queen's heart turned black. Her home, her wardrobe, her entire world shrouded in mourning. And Beatrice, still a child, became part of that mourning. Her toys were replaced by silence, her playtime by funerals, her childhood by duty. Modern psychologists would call it parentification, when a child becomes the emotional caretaker of a grieving parent. For Beatrice, it became her life sentence. The perfect prisoner. While her siblings married and moved away, Beatrice stayed. Her mother forbade her from marrying, from travelling, from even speaking of independence. Queen Victoria wrote in her diary, "Beatrice is my comfort, my angel, my everything. She must never leave me." Beatrice learned early that love came with captivity. She became her mother's secretary, writing letters, copying diaries, attending audiences, soothing moods, fetching shawls. For decades she lived at Osborne House in Balmoral, the quiet figure behind the throne. Every word of Victoria's was sacred. Every emotion of Beatrice's was forbidden. By her 30s, she began to suffer from chronic fatigue, fainting spells, and what her doctors called nervous exhaustion. Modern medicine would diagnose anxiety disorder and complex trauma, made physical by years of stress and repression. Her letters mention a trembling in the hands and a weight upon the chest. She was the Queen's nurse and the Queen's patient. The forbidden love. Then, in 1884, something extraordinary happened. At a wedding in Germany, Beatrice met Prince Henry of Battenberg. Charming, handsome, younger than her, and completely unsuitable in her mother's eyes. When Beatrice told Queen Victoria she wished to marry him, the Queen refused to speak to her for 6 months. Beatrice recorded simply, "I am under a great cloud." Eventually, Victoria relented, on one condition. Beatrice and Henry must live with her. Even in marriage, Beatrice would not be free. They married in 1885, and their early years were tender but strained by the Queen's constant presence. Beatrice gave birth to 4 children, but each pregnancy left her weaker. She developed recurring fevers, joint pain, and postpartum exhaustion. Modern medicine points to autoimmune thyroid disease or chronic anemia aggravated by depression. When Henry volunteered for military service in Africa in 1896, she begged him not to go. He went anyway and died of malaria at just 37. Beatrice, widowed at 38, never recovered. Her mother had outlived her husband. Now the daughter would follow in her example. The shadow of the Queen. After Henry's death, Beatrice's life folded back into her mother's. She wore mourning black for decades, even after Victoria's death in 1901. She rarely appeared in public without a veil. Her health declined steadily. Insomnia, digestive pain, migraines, palpitations. Her letters speak of a great tiredness of the body and a deeper one of the spirit. She developed what her doctors called neuralgia, a Victorian catch-all term for chronic nerve pain. In modern terms, it was likely fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome caused by grief and unending emotional labour. Her hands shook when she wrote, her weight dropped, and yet she took on her mother's final and most terrible command. to edit and copy every one of Queen Victoria's diaries, all 60 million words of them. She spent nearly 30 years reading, censoring and rewriting her mother's memories. In doing so, she erased herself. A modern psychologist might call it dissociation, the quiet disintegration of identity under lifelong obedience. The decline. By her 60s, Beatrice's health was visibly collapsing. She suffered fainting spells, heart irregularities, swelling of the legs, signs of congestive heart failure. Her doctors prescribed morphine, digitalis and sleeping draughts. The very medicines meant to soothe her were slowly killing her. Her letters to her daughter Ina, now Queen of Spain, grew fragmented and vague. She complained of blurred vision, tremors and breathlessness, symptoms of chronic opiate toxicity and advanced heart disease. The modern autopsy. If we were to examine her today, her heart would show hypertrophy and stiffened valves, classic of long-term hypertension and congestive failure. Her kidneys would reveal scarring from morphine use and years of diuretics. Her nerves would show demyelination, chronic pain and neuropathy. Her thyroid might appear atrophied, autoimmune damage linked to decades of stress. And her brain, shrunken slightly, would tell a quieter story, a lifetime of repression, emotional trauma, and chemical sedation. Cause of death: heart failure secondary to chronic stress and opiate dependence. Manner of death: natural, but accelerated by lifelong psychological captivity. The modern verdict. Princess Beatrice lived in service to others, first to her mother, then to her memory. Her body was not broken in battle, nor by disease, but by devotion. She spent her life editing another woman's story until her own vanished. Her bones would show endurance, her heart fatigue, her blood the quiet toll of sorrow. The official cause of death: heart failure. The truth: she died of inheritance, not the wealth of a crown, but the weight of grief passed from mother to daughter. This was the modern autopsy of Princess Beatrice, the daughter who couldn't escape. Subscribe for more royal autopsies, because sometimes loyalty is the most fatal disease of all.